Hey everyone, welcome to Cool Chess. This is Minor Piece Mastery. Today we're pushing theory to the edge with two knights in the endgame. Underestimated? Absolutely, but full of surprises. Let's jump right into it. Knight is a sneaky piece. If you have ever played Blitz, for sure you know what I am talking about. Here is one example of a knight causing nightmares. Let's make this a quick warm-up. White to move and win. Can you solve it in just 5 seconds? If you spotted Queen A8, well done. That's a brilliant queen sacrifice that also works as a perfect decoy. But that was just the appetizer. Now the knight comes in to finish the meal. Get ready with the forks. This is what I call an all-you-can-eat buffet. What happens when we double the mischief and throw two of these sneaky horses on the board? Do they become an unstoppable duo? Or just two confused ponies bumping into each other? Let's see some examples. All right, let's take a look at this position. It might not look like a roller coaster, but trust me, it's packed with twists. If it's black to move, they can capture the a5 pawn, but in doing so, they walk straight into a two knights versus king endgame. Let's just reshuffle the pieces and get this one out of the way. This is the simplest scenario, and there's only one key thing to remember. Two knights alone can't checkmate a king. Even if we force the black king into the corner, we're stuck. Either we let him escape or it's a stalemate. All right, let's get back to our original position. Now, we already know that if the pawn is taken, it's a draw. So, does that mean this position is automatically a draw too? Not necessarily. Surprisingly, in many situations, two knights versus king and pawn can actually be a win. Remember that stalemate is the defender's best friend, just like we said on the takeaway card, but with an extra pawn on the board, stalemate might not even be an option. Well, imagine if black could magically play knight b7 to a6 to block the pawn, then this would actually be a winning position for black. Let's reshuffle the pieces once again and look at an example of why an extra pawn for the defender can actually be counterproductive. All right, this is the exact same position we looked at earlier, but with one key difference. Black has an extra pawn on f3. And just like that, the evaluation flips from a draw to a win for white. The secret? No stalemate this time. All right, let's dive into something even many grandmasters don't know. Stick with me. It's a bit of dry theory, but I promise it'll be quick. It's crucial if you really want to understand everything about these tricky knights. And trust me, knowing this puts you in a truly elite group of players. This is the infamous Troistky Line. If black has a single pawn that's blockaded by a white knight and hasn't advanced past the Troistky Line, then white can always checkmate with two knights. If the pawn has advanced beyond the line, checkmate might still be possible, but only if the black king is close to the edge. But here's the key. The Troistky line always guarantees a win when its conditions are met. Let's look at an example. It'll make a lot more sense in action. Here, black has a pawn on c6, and it's blockaded by a knight. This fits perfectly within the Troistky line, which means it's a winning position for white. But instead of diving into this exact setup, let's take a look at a similar position that actually came up in a real tournament game. This position occurred during the 2021 European Women's Team Championship match between Germany and Hungary. The score was tied at 1.5 to 1.5. A win for white would clinch the match for Germany, while a draw would secure a tie for Hungary. Sooner or later, black would lose the g-pawn and be forced to give up her bishop for white's pawn. And if she wasn't careful, she might not even get the chance to do that. So she made a practical decision to eliminate white's last pawn immediately. And here we are, back in our theoretical endgame. Do you remember the verdict on this position? Is it a win or a draw? While you're thinking about it, go ahead and smash that subscribe button, give the video a like, and drop a comment to let us know what kind of content you'd love to see next. All right, if you remembered that the g-pawn on the 5th rank falls outside the Troistky line and realize this position might not be winning, hats off, you're on fire. If it's black to move, the position is indeed a draw according to the Tablebase. But just to show how tricky these positions are, if it were white to move instead, this exact same position would actually be winning. Why? Well, that's above my pay grade. I'll drop a link to the Tablebase if you want to dig into it yourself. What really matters is this. Even though it's a draw with black to move, it's incredibly easy to go wrong. And in chess, as we know, If it can be messed up, it usually is. Let's watch those knights dance around, slowly herding the king toward the corner. There are a few mistakes along the way. Black's king should be trying to slip away from the blockading knight on g4, and white needs to prevent that. This is exactly why the Troistky line matters. The blockading knight has to join the action eventually, and how much help it can offer depends entirely on where it's blocking the pawn. And finally, we've arrived. Black's king is trapped in the corner. White is ready to deliver checkmate, and thanks to the g5 pawn, there's no stalemate to ruin it. So the result? It's a draw. Wait, what just happened? How is that a draw? Well, there's this pesky rule that's ruined many chess players' day. The 50-move rule. It says that if no capture has been made and no pawn has moved in the last 50 moves, either player can claim a draw. Instead of getting checkmated on the very next move, Black pulled out a last trick pony and claimed a draw. It turns out she gave up her bishop on move 60, and it was captured on move 61, exactly 50 moves ago. So, the 50-move rule kicks in, the game is drawn, and the match ends in a tie. Such heartbreak on one side and such a relief on the other. All right, let's keep going. Let's get back to our original position. But this time around, it is white to move. A6 has to be played. This move should be straightforward for a few good reasons. First, if you've been paying attention, you'll know that the only real danger for white is having the a5 pawn blockaded by a knight. So the goal is simple. Break free from the Troistky line. Or if you prefer a classic principle, passed pawns must be pushed. Different reasoning, same conclusion. And here's the twist. Black may have two knights, but they're completely helpless against that pawn. Don't believe me? Go ahead, play around with the knights and try to stop it. Once you give up, hit play and let's see what's really going on. Doesn't matter what Black does, the A pawn is going to promote. Wait, did white just win? From a position we were discussing as lost or drawn the entire time? Hold your horses. Here comes the final piece of knowledge we need to wrap up this position. Two knights versus a queen? It's an easy draw. Unlike some other endgames, Black doesn't even need to build a fortress here, which is necessary in bishop and knight versus queen, or even two bishops versus queen scenarios. While two knights can hold off a queen quite well, there's still one important detail worth mentioning. The goal is to cover as many squares as possible with the knights. To do that, it's usually better to keep them close together, but not in a setup where they're defending each other. Why? Because when knights defend each other, they tend to cover fewer squares and can easily get tangled up in awkward positions. All right, we've covered quite a bit. Now it's time to have some fun. To solve this fun little puzzle, you'll need both the knowledge we've covered and a spark of brilliance. White to move and draw. You've got 5 seconds. Let's see if inspiration hits. Did you find it? If white just waits, Black's pawns, supported by the knights, will eventually overpower the rook. But what if white could eliminate both pawns at once, even at the cost of the rook? That would land us in a two knights versus king endgame. And as we know, that's a draw. Now that's an idea. Rook d3 is such a brilliant move. If you manage to find it, you are truly a very strong player. His Majesty is finally ready to step in and clean up the mess. This works so well for white because knights have a well-known blind spot. They just can't cover those diagonal squares 2 steps out even in 2 moves. With just 2 knights against the king, it's safe to say this one's a draw. All right, to finish up, I'm going to show you an extraordinary position. But fair warning, this is advanced territory. Many knights have fallen in far easier challenges before. Still, we can all appreciate the beauty and surprise this position brings. And who knows, you might even use it to taunt a grandmaster someday. There are 25 legal moves for white, but only one saves the position. The other 24 are losing. I bet even with 10 guesses you wouldn't find it. Don't believe me? Pause the video, write down your top 10 moves, let's see how you do. The only saving move is King c6. Yep, you heard that right. Be honest, was that move on your list? If you actually found it, you're way ahead of the curve. Even engines struggle with this one. It's kind of a waiting move, which is pretty crazy when your opponent is about to promote. But it turns out any knight move would actually make things worse. And as for other king moves, they're all bad too. But more on that in a moment. First of all, what was the plan on g1 queen? Knight to h4, and here's the trick. You can't take it because now there's a nasty fork lurking on f3. And here is another reason behind king c6. Black has no useful checks from this position. That could have been a real problem if the king had moved anywhere else. The only sensible check, queen to h1, can be calmly met with knight h to f3. And just like that, we have a beautiful fortress. The knights defend each other and protect the d2 pawn. They also completely cut off the black king. It can't move. And the black queen? Helpless. She can't break through or deliver checkmate on her own. It's a draw. If you made it all the way through, hats off to you. Let us know if you enjoyed the format, what you'd like to see next, or if you spotted anything we missed. And if you haven't already, hit the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. See you in the next one.